that we're presenting. That's in our brochure. I'll give you the link to that too, so you can download and have a better look, because I'm just going to be giving us a whistle-stop tour of what we do. I've got a PowerPoint, so if you bear with me a couple of awkward seconds as I try and pull it up. So David, you're going to screen share with me, and then if I open my...
You'll be able to pull it up yourself if you're familiar with it. If not, I can do it for you.
Do I need to click share screen?
Yes, yes.
So share screen. Apologies, everybody. Here we go. You should see.
And then just put it on slide mode.
Yeah, if I can slideshow from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
You can all see it, yeah?
No.
Just to confirm, you can all see the slide, yeah?
No.
Yeah?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, okay, fantastic.
Yeah, all good.
Okay, right, let's technical issues out the way. So you might have heard of the circular economy. It's not rocket science. It's quite a straightforward process where you don't just do the recycling, you do something with it. You feed it back into the loop. And but is that where the story ends? If we're going to create benefits in communities, well, we could be very good at collecting stuff, as we are now in Wales. But if it's just to push up the share dividend, I'm exaggerating to make a point here, but if it's just to push up the share dividend of an organisation that might not even be in Wales, for the chief exec to buy himself a second yacht, I say him, it's usually a him, isn't it? It's that isn't the full circular economy I have in mind. I assume most people are on board with that. So we're calling this triple impact circularity, because you'll hear about the circular economy purely as something that should happen in factories, as something, to tidy up, to kind of be more resource efficient and make that little bit of extra money. Of course, we're not against the circular economy driving forward in industry and car building and all of that. But we do see a missed opportunity, if you like, of building on this foundation stone of community activity we have in Wales, of reuse and recycling, to glean the full impact. So we call it triple impact circularity, where we look at well-being, people's well-being, the resilience of communities using resources. So a quick who we are. We're a community interest company bringing global innovation to Wales. I'll explain a little bit more why we're doing that in a little while. So what we do, we provide practical plans to yourselves, to communities, to anybody who wants to partner with us, basically, to help Wales's communities. And how we do that with systems that circulate resources and wealth that are there already at our disposal in our own communities. And that's it's happening with certain elements of the waste stream, but not all. There's a lot of opportunities that we can create that generates wealth for us all. That's what we call triple impact circularity. So we also host a global collaborative of these kind of people, not people who call themselves circular economy per se alone. We're talking about a specific subset of circular innovators who believe in this community-focused, community benefiting circularity of resources, to create jobs, to create training opportunities, to make life easier, more creative, more colourful. We have a 50-strong network of supporters across Wales of reuse, community-facing reuse and recycling organisations. And why are we doing this? Well, we have, as founder board members, we all have around 20 years experience of design of circular systems, particularly in communities. We organised the International Declaration on Zero Waste in Wales. A lot of people don't know that. It came from the communities. It didn't start from government or private enterprise. It was It was grassroots driven, and it was the international declaration was launched. A place you might know, the Bulkeley Arms on Anglesey, with the backdrop of Snowdonia over the Menai. That aim was nailed to the post, and not everybody was favourable to it, particularly landfill businesses who were quite happy to take the gate fees for anything coming through the door. Things have changed a little since then, of course. We helped put together conferences for zero waste, pushing forward for that legislation, landmark legislation in Wales. And I myself and a couple of others, we were involved in instigating, designing the first zero waste villages in Wales. We did a couple in the Conwy Valley. We did one down in St Arvans in Monmouthshire. They weren't everywhere. The idea was, let's try and see if this works. What would happen in a community if you tried to collect everything? What percentage recycling would you get up to? And it got up to 90%, which is far higher than we're on now. Jane Davidson, the Minister for Environment at the time, used that. She used that evidence to put zero waste into the legislation. We've also, as a community level, designed a lot of the reuse business models out there. Things like community fridge, repaint schemes, packages for the homeless, home start packages for people going into houses. There's been a history of collaboration between community housing, the housing sector, and social enterprises like, well, first of all, you got Crest Cooperative, who've had a great alliance with Conwy Housing, also Ravenhouse Trust in Newport, in Gwent, been doing similar things, bringing from the reuse sector packages so that people going into homes for the first time have, everything from curtains to even surplus reuse food that I'll come on to in a second. Just to get technical, and then it's going to get a lot lighter from this with some moving imagery and whatnot. This is the model that's sort of accepted of what the circular economy looks like. So apologies, it's going to be a little technical for about a minute or two. So it looks like a donut, basically. The outer ring of the donut, beyond that, that's the ecological ceiling. That's the barrier, the limit that the planet is hitting up against. We've only got a finite amount of any given material, and we could overstretch on that ecological ceiling on all those things around the edge there. You can see climate change, land conversion, biodiversity loss. We're hitting up against these limits. Below the inner ring, if you fall inside the donut into that abyss, that's what we call the social foundation. We're gleaming all these materials in order to provide, are we not, a decent society for humanity. Well, we're not always doing that, because although we're overburdening and stretching the planet, we're falling within that social foundation. People are going hungry, they're going without water, energy, suffering from gender equality, not having a political voice, and so on, all those kind of things. So the real challenge of donut economics, which was devised by Kate Raworth, who wrote the excellent book on this, is to stay within that sweet ring of the donut. Stay within that, and humanity will survive. Not only survive, but thrive as well in creative, colourful communities. What we're adding to this doesn't conflict with donut economics. A little bit like one of those spirographs from the 70s. We're giving a bit of detail to the donut, the loops. What can we loop? What can we stop from leaving our communities? What can we tie down and make available for people in their own communities? That's the technical bit out of the way. We've we brand ourselves with these loops for everything we do, just to make it simple. So we provide ideas, and we get those ideas from around the world. We utilize our track record in the circular economy over the last 20 years and the contacts that we have globally. We look out there and see what is being done well outside of Wales. Where have we even, because we could rest on our laurels, couldn't we? That, we're fantastic with third globally. Was it second in Europe, first in the UK, in terms of our recycling rates? Well, we could just sit back, let that take care of itself. But we shouldn't rest on our laurels, and there's a lot of exciting stuff going on globally, that with the kind of blinkers of success we have in Wales, we might be ignoring and missing a trick of what's happening out there. So that's one of our roles, is to bring back and showcase, to circulate wealth for the communities. It can be done with all sorts of things. We have a brochure that I'll send you the link to. Incidentally, it's first page of of our website. You can download it in English and Welsh. These are some of the kind of things floating around that donut that are escaping your community. They all have value, be it surplus in-date food or nutrition leaving your kitchens, and being burnt or buried rather than going back into local farming, making your local food cheaper. There's no limits to this in terms of transforming communities. Our brochure really is the tip of the iceberg. So why local circularity brings well-being and resilience? It's uniquely Welsh. There's a spirit of cooperativism, in communities the width and breadth of Wales. So we're pushing an open door here. Let's have a look at some real life examples, because we've been talking technically and in the abstract. So let's have a look at some of the things that we're doing in Wales. First of all, this is precious plastic. If this thing works, you should be seeing a moving image. Don't worry if not, I'll explain through this. Precious plastic unit, it fits into a shipping container. This could go into any community. Doesn't have to be a shipping container. Could be next to houses in a community centre. This gives people in their communities and householders the opportunity to take their plastics to the precious plastic centre and to turn it into something that's of value to them. All the machines that hopefully you can see, if not, I'll try and describe them. They're very hands-on. They're people of any age could use. This isn't high-end industrial big machines that are dangerous. And we do in our communities, don't we not? We do a lot of litter picks and beach cleans. Sometimes we clear our sheds out and attics of all sorts of stuff. And where does it go? It could actually build things like this, climbing frames, and it doesn't have to. We're not talking about small things. You can create the component parts of something bigger, like a climbing frame or a slide or whatever. So you feed stock in, and the community gets something out. And if whatever you've built breaks, guess what? You can take it back to your precious plastic unit, put it through the grinder, and make something new. Essentially what this does, as well as being a community resource, precious plastic is an opportunity for Wales to become literate in terms of the different kinds of plastic, all the different polymers, so that we see the true value in them. And young people in particular starting their career, this could enable them to be more entrepreneurial, to think of related business startups in their communities. It's done in over 1,000 places globally. There's not one precious plastic unit in Wales as yet. That's why we've stepped into the frame to be an agent, if you like, the advocate for it. If we can collect groups of people together, we can put a joint bid in with you. We won't benefit from that other than doing the training. We'd factor that into a bid, but we would, the kit would be yours. It would be Rhonda's or Bangors or whatever. Same principle applies to our other schemes. Let's go on to community wealth. This is where we're pushing the boundaries of the circular economy, because we're looking at the wealth, the money that's generated in communities leaking out. I was very fortunate of having a Churchill Fellowship to go and see some complementary currency schemes throughout Europe. Now, this could be incredibly valid for housing associations. I was speaking before this presentation to Malcolm Hayday, CBE, who was founder of the Charity Bank, founder CEO of the Charity Bank, and he said it was community housing sector that pushed the Charity Bank into being. It helped it consolidate because of all of the procurement that was happening and utilizing a non-profit bank. It really pushed them leaps and bounds. The Calin in Wales is Wales's first complementary currency. It's a pilot that we ran over last year. It emulates what they do in Switzerland, called the VIA. The VIA has been running in Switzerland since 1934. So this isn't some fly-by-night idea. It isn't the latest trend, although it has been replicated more recently on the Isle of Sardinia, and 10 times in 10 regions of Italy. We know this works. So the pilot wasn't about seeing whether it worked. It was about seeing whether we could design something in a Welsh image. The Calin means holly, and holly leaves are designed to protect the assets of the plant. So the Calin is a tokenization of, well, it works. It allows a small business, a private enterprise, social enterprise, or any sector to look at the spare stock they have, the stuff that isn't being used, services, and to trade those using Calin. By doing so, you're saving pounds sterling. By me, let's say I was a cheese producer, I could offer my cheese for X amount of Calin, receive Calin in for that, and we could do reciprocal swaps of goods using Calin for certain goods where it's appropriate. What that means is that cross-sector, any organisation engaged in this, as happens in Switzerland, you're saving pounds sterling for the things you really need fiat money, official money for. For your mortgage, your lights, that kind of thing. But for your local stuff, you can procure a lot of things locally through the Calin. To fully get this, I appreciate I'd need another half hour on this. So apologies if that's a bit vague, but I can promise you it's that in Switzerland at least, this accounts now for 1.8% of GDP. It's been the cushion for the Swiss economic stability, and that's what we're bringing to Wales. So to finish off, community fridge, the last example I'll give. If you had one of these in your community, it's a depository and a pickup point for surplus food from households, from small businesses. So you've got surplus food. You're going on a trip to see relatives. You don't want to return to a fridge full of rotting food. Why not give that to your neighbours and community and whatnot? This is a means to do that. It's a depository where you can take that stuff. But they're volunteer-led. We provide all the training. Again, we're the agency for this community fridge for Wales. We're setting up 12 at the moment. We've got the resources to put 12 into place, and that'll be only the beginning. And that deal consists of 3 fridges and freezers for the community to put into a central location. I noticed Dorothy from Kaya is is part of the event and was asking David some questions at the beginning. I can confirm that Kaya Park is one of the 9 hosts we got signed up already. And you know, food poverty is a real serious issue, and this is a way of communities themselves having the means of tackling this in their own hands. And you know what I really like about this, to finish off, is that a lot of food schemes are felt by the users as backhanders, as some, you know, means tested where you have to go through a back door. This isn't. It's non-means tested, no stigma. This is for the whole community. You go in, you can drop stuff off, you can pick stuff up with no questions asked. You're doing it, let's say, for environmental reasons. We know that the majority of users, from our research, 70% of users actually do need our own need, but it's not marketed like that. They're there. You could have people who are relatively well off going and using the community fridge. Great. And you know why that's great? Is because there's millions of tons of food going to waste. So let's make this a whole community effort without it being any stigma attached. And to wrap up, you know, if you feel, well, recycling and reuse and utilizing these opportunities are for other people, well, who did the recycling? Who got Wales to 3rd globally? You did. You did it. Government might have set the strategies, businesses, councils might have picked it up, but you did it in your own houses. My last question I'll throw to you before I hand over back to the chair is, isn't it high time that you as householders, as citizens of Wales, benefited from all of the hard work that you've done? Isn't it time that there was payback? That payback might not come, it might not be organised for us, but we in our own communities can, utilising these tools and many more tools from around the world, we can make our communities better, more resilient and more connected. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Avion, for that. There's quite a lot to take in there. I noticed there was a question popped up, I think from Rachel, saying, how do we get more information about this? Certainly the community fridges. I'm guessing you'll be happy for us to circulate your details to people afterwards. And so that if people want to discuss this further, certainly the community fridge, I got the impression, was of interest to Rachel and Newydd for 2 areas that they operate in. So yeah, we'll circulate your details. I know from a personal perspective, I've got a real interest in Celyn. It's something that I've been discussing with Bitcoin Wales in the past about cryptocurrencies or local currencies. We were thinking about running an event, but it looks like actually you've got this covered, and it might be something we'll talk to you about, maybe doing a bit more on that subject as we get closer to the launch. And I assume it hasn't launched yet. I was just trying to look at the details on your website.
Yeah, well, can I add to that? In terms of people being involved in that, it's now moving in a transition from being a pilot to having its own legal vehicle. We feel a community benefit society would be most appropriate, and your organisation and others. That gives you the opportunity to come around that table, be part of its governance in future. Yeah, so it's all designed. We tested it in-house with our own stakeholders. It's all ready to roll once we get the finance. We've got all the apps and Android apps and everything all set up. But yeah, we're recruiting people who want to be part of it, and you can sign up. We're going to change the language on there, because at the moment it looks as if you're signing up to the actual a working Celyn, but we'll change that this week so that you're signing up to a Celyn once we get the finance. The Development Bank of Wales are on board. Giles Thorley, their chief exec, said that it's got legs, and he's informed the First Minister. So we won't be waiting around for too long with those kind of with that kind of support.
Well, it might be something we could run if people are interested in it. We could maybe run a bit more of an in-depth discussion on that. Like I say, I think it's a fascinating subject. I've seen that's Sardinia business case. I think it's fascinating. And when I looked at it, I was like, wow, we need to get this out into social housing. So pleased to see what you're doing there. So we'll be back in touch on that. Sorry, I meant to be answering questions, but rather than me getting excited by it. But no, there are some, I think Mally's been putting some links in the chat as well to more information as well about this subject. So if it's okay, I wouldn't mind some time at the end. So if it's okay with me, I would like to go on to Phoebe's talk. Phoebe Brown is a board director and head of operations at Repair Cafe Wales. It's a not-for-profit community interest company. Repair Cafe Wales facilitates pop-up events across Wales. I've been to a number of them in Penarth in the past, where members of the public can get household items fixed for free by volunteers, and with that aim of trying to avoid them going into landfill. As well as that waste reduction, I think Repair Cafes also focus on skill sharing, reducing isolation and bringing communities together. Wonderful thing, and that's why we were really keen to have them on board today. So if I can hand over to Phoebe. Phoebe Brown, everybody.
Great, thank you, David, and thanks for the introduction. I'm just going to share some slides. Give me 1 second. So hopefully everyone should be able to see. Can you see these slides? Well,
just waiting for it to go full screen.
Just give it a second to load. So yeah, as David mentioned, Repair Cafe Wales facilitates pop-up events across Wales, where members of the community can come in and have household items fixed completely for free by volunteers to stop those items going to landfill. And so that, oh, sorry, I'm having some PowerPoint difficulties. 1 second. Maybe it's because I'm in full screen. I mean, I can talk without the PowerPoint if it's not going to load.
I'm happy to load it from my end, if that helps, and then you just go next.
Would you mind? Sorry, I'm not sure why it's not reloading. That would be great if you could.
Let's see if I can.
I can carry on talking for now whilst you load that to save delays. But yes, so we facilitate events where people can have things fixed completely for free, and that way that it reduces waste going to landfill. And also a big part of what we do is encouraging people to kind of reevaluate their relationship with their items. So we will really encourage someone to sit down with the volunteer when they're having their item fixed, not only because they might be able to learn some skills in terms of fixing for themselves, but also it means people feel more connected to their items, and it starts to kind of tackle this problem that we've got at the moment of kind of this disposable throwaway society. So there's lots of reasons why someone might come into a repair cafe. It might be that they just really care about the planet and they don't want to throw something away. But also it might be that they just can't afford to buy something new. So their toaster might break, they might not be able to afford a new one, and therefore they can come in and have it fixed for free. Also, what we're very, very keen on is community cohesion. So whilst kind of at their core, repair cafes are about reducing waste and sustainability, what they've kind of turned into, almost by chance really, is really lovely community hubs. So they provide a very sort of inclusive, welcoming, just really wholesome, positive space where people can come in and have a chat, have a cup of tea, sometimes some cake if you're lucky, and sort of speak with neighbours, speak to local people that they would never normally sort of get a chance to interact with otherwise. And what that helps to do is bring communities together to tackle social isolation, and also obviously all the mental health and wellbeing benefits that come with volunteering and also feeling more connected to your local community. Would you mind skipping a few slides, David? Well, thank you. Just the next one, please. Great, thank you. So we started actually with just one repair cafe. Our two co-founders, Keris and Joe, just wanted to set something up in their community. So we started with one in Cardiff. And what happened is people started travelling to Cardiff to visit the Repair Cafe because they'd heard about it and they liked the concept. And so Keris and Joe realised that really people driving to a Repair Cafe was kind of defeating the point of saving carbon from fixing something if they were driving to get there, and really everyone needed one in their own community. So they started helping people to set them up elsewhere, and that's kind of where Repair Cafe Wales was born. So what we do now is we make it as simple as possible for a community to start a Repair Cafe locally, and we've got just over 50 repair cafes now all across Wales. We've helped set up a couple in England and Scotland as well. So they're springing up everywhere, and we've seen a real sort of demand for them, particularly over the past 12 months. I think the pandemic has made people really sort of consider the importance of community and their local area, and that seems to have driven a real demand for these type of services, which is brilliant. Sorry, next slide please, David. So in terms of what this means for our sort of future communities and where we want to go next, our vision for Wales is to have a repair cafe in every village, town, city, community across Wales. It would be great for everyone to be able to sort of access a repair cafe. But also we're starting to see demand for these type of initiatives on a more permanent basis. So this is very, very new to us, but it's something that's quite exciting and that we're really keen to work on, is having repair cafes where they're in more fixed locations, whether that be recycling centres or high streets. So on the next slide, you'll see a project we've just finished. This is the recycling centre in Swansea, the Llansamlet Recycling Centre, at their Tip Treasures shop. So at the moment, what they do is they take items from landfill that are in good condition and they resell them on to make some profit for the council. And they had this big empty space, which we've just renovated, to now have a library of things and a repair cafe permanent space within the centre. And what that allows is for items to be taken from landfill that might need to be repaired before they can be sold, but also it's a facility where people can access repair whenever they want to, even outside of repair cafe events. The library of things, I'll just briefly touch upon it, but I'm sure you can all hear much more about it from Ella in the talk tomorrow. But it allows people to borrow items they need but don't own and donate items they own but don't need. So for example, the concept is that not everybody in a community needs to own a lawnmower, when realistically, how often are you mowing your lawn? And really there could be a few based in those communities that people can hire for a very small fee or for volunteering hours, for example, and use it as and when they need it, rather than these resources being owned by absolutely everyone. So this is now, this is our first one that we've done based at a recycling centre, and it's due to open as COVID restrictions lift. So it will be interesting to see kind of the impact that this has and the relationship that it can have with the recycling centre as well. And then the most exciting project I think that we're working on, and perhaps the biggest project we've ever worked on, is on the next slide, please, David, is in Newport. So we've just this month started a project to work with Newport City Homes and with Benthyg Cymru, which is the Wales's network of library of things, to open a permanent shop space on Skinner Street in Newport. So this is a new development that Newport City Homes have built. So above the street of shops will be a number of housing association apartments, and the whole street is hopefully going to have different social enterprise businesses in it. So what this means is that, again, similarly to the recycling centre, there'll be a permanent space where people can come in and repair. And I guess the difference that we're seeing here from our normal pop-up events is that it will act quite similarly to, I guess, to a charity shop. So there'll be a paid shop manager and then volunteers that come in and staff the space, but it means that it's open to the community 7 days a week with regular shop hours, unlike a normal repair cafe event, which just pops up for 3 hours within a community. And what we're hoping is that really sort of triggers a shift in behaviour change, because people will be able to access repair and access borrowing far more easily and more regularly than they can with a normal repair cafe event. It also will provide a community hub, so all of those benefits that I spoke about with a repair cafe we'll see sort of replicated within a high street environment. So the wellbeing benefits, the sort of community cohesion, but within more of a city centre space. And then it also, again, taps into high street regeneration. We've seen over the course of the pandemic how many empty shops that we've got on our high street, and a real reduced footfall in people coming into town centres and using those resources. What we're hoping this will do, and again, we're yet to see whether this will be successful. It's kind of a trial and error project. But what we're hoping it will do is, because there's so many ways someone can use a repair cafe and utilise a library of things, it will bring in a really diverse and increased footfall into town centres, and also be a really brilliant resource for housing association residents who are living nearby to this. Yeah, sorry, great. They're just some of our contact details if you wanted to get in touch. But yes, the previous project, the hope is that we will trial this for a year in Newport, initially just focusing on the one space, working with Newport City Homes to see how it might work, to see what people's reactions are to it, to see kind of what opening hours work, for example, what different methods of borrowing might best suit that community. And then using the help of TPAS Cymru and other housing association links to then hopefully roll this out across Wales. So it's quite a flagship project for Wales. It's something very new, not only in Wales, but also across the UK. And it's hopefully going to be a really sort of crucial project, not only in making these circular economy initiatives more accessible to people, but also in tackling some real sort of economic issues as well in terms of high street regeneration. And they'll obviously all be very different depending on the communities that they're based in, because I guess one of the most important things about repair cafes is that they vary so much depending on the community that they're based in. They're very community driven. We only open repair cafes where there's demand for them. I mean, there's demand for them pretty much everywhere at the moment, but they're really sort of driven by someone in the community coming forward and saying, oh, I've seen this initiative, I would really like one, I've got this great venue. And that repair cafe will function however it needs to serve its community. So for example, we have one in Ely, which is a more economically deprived area of Cardiff, which therefore offers things like free breakfast. It has a uniform swap shop, it connects with its community pantry, a donations table, for example. Whereas the one in Penarth that David mentioned at the beginning is in a slightly more affluent area and therefore brings in lots and lots of donations and uses those to help support other repair cafes in the network. So they all sort of work very differently. Our repair cafe in Pontypridd, for example, supports the local refugee community to allow them to come in and volunteer, practice their skills in terms of employability and also in terms of English language skills as well. So they're really important community hubs. And what we're hoping that means for this high street project is that there'll be lots and lots of initiatives around Newport and then around the other locations that we roll out to, that will be able to tap into this space and use this space. So social prescribing initiatives, the university campus in Newport, for example, will all be able to link in with that project. So yeah, watch this space, we'll see how it goes. But hopefully it'll be a really brilliant asset for Newport and for the housing association as well. So yes, any questions?
Stop sharing there. Sorry.
Well, thank you.
Anybody got any questions on use the chat on the side, or want to put your hand up? I'm clearly still not on video, right? I think Skinner Street is going to be the place to be in the future, isn't it? I can't wait to go and see it. I think combining, you say, repair cafe with library of things, I think just makes so much sense. And yeah, I look forward to it. Has anybody been to a repair cafe before? Has anybody put a hand up? Obviously, I've done a little video on it as well on the TPAS YouTube channel. I thought it was an excellent place when I've been a couple of times now to Penarth. No hands going up there? No. Okay. Sorry, so Amanda's asked on the side, are you able to access grants to create these in deprived areas? How do these come about? Presumably, Newport City Homes have been on board with this, haven't they? Yeah. Yeah,
so we've been granted some funding to do that project in Newport. In terms of the smaller community pop-up events, so our sort of more traditional repair cafes, they're pretty much zero cost to set up. So often our volunteers will bring all of their own tools. We provide all the assistance and the starter kit to get running totally for free, because we're a not-for-profit. And then the only thing that you would need is, I guess the only essential that you would need is insurance, which we just ask for a £50 contribution per year, and that normally comes from people's donations. So they can start and be founded very, very easily with very little cost. We're lucky enough as well to get some funding from the Welsh Government, which helps us provide the support to start up these initiatives as well. In terms of the more permanent spaces, we've been working with Newport City Homes, obviously, to access that space. It's owned by Newport City Homes, and they've been really brilliant working with us to be able to offer us sort of reduced rent for that space. And we've had some grant funding to be able to run that project.
That's great. So Mally Bainan's asked a question on the side, which is, what happens if a volunteer doesn't know how to repair that item? It's not just one person, is it? Do you want to,
No, yeah. So you'll have a whole range of volunteers at a repair cafe with all different types of skills. It's also not just professional fixers. There's so many people in a community that know how to fix. Doesn't necessarily mean they're an electrician or a professional seamstress, but they have those skills. We have so many skilled people in our communities that can fix things, and repair cafes provide that forum for those people to come together. In terms of not being able to fix the item, we have about a 70% success rate of something being repaired. So most of the time something can be repaired. If it can't be repaired, often it's the case that it's been designed that way. So a lot of the time things can't be repaired, very frustratingly, because there's a particular tool that you need to be able to open an item that only the manufacturer, has access to, or they've been the plastic casing, you'd have to crack it open to be able to get to the mechanics, for example. But a lot of the time, if we can't fix an item for whatever reason, the person who's brought the item in at least knows that they've done their best to not, to fix that item, and feel maybe slightly less guilty in throwing it away if that is the case.
Yeah.
But lots of the time, if our volunteer doesn't know how to fix it, they'll work together with other volunteers within the repair cafe, and it will be a bit of a joint effort. They're very good at figuring things out. Our volunteers, they're very clever, so they normally can work out how to fix something.
Yeah. Amanda's mentioned on the side, do councils offer unused council properties to help set up? Again, it's that partnership collaboration, isn't it? I know Coastal had used an unused flat in the past. There was a meeting space not being used, and it had enabled them to have a pop-up Coastal Housing, to have a pop-up repair cafe. So
yeah, definitely. And I guess we've worked with a number of local authorities recently to open a number more repair cafes. In terms of the permanent spaces, they're very new, and it's a little bit trickier because obviously you need that space full time rather than just popping up in those spaces. So that is something that obviously we're kind of working towards, and it would be great to see more of them across different local authorities.
So I noticed Natasha's clearly interested in this. She's asked, support the facilitation of a one-off pop-up cafe and help with that demand and insight to communities as to what it is and things. Presumably you've got publicity materials and things.
Yeah, absolutely. So because we've been doing this for 4 years now, we've kind of tried and tested everything to figure out the best way of doing this. And what we've got as a result of that is a kind of starter kit of all the documents that you might need to set it up. So it really is kind of a step-by-step process, and we make it as easy as possible for a community to start one. And also we're there as an organisation to kind of hold your hand through that process and then offer any ongoing support that you might need. But we can run sessions with a community group similarly to this one, to talk about what it is and how it all works. And that's often what we'll do, is kind of a community consultation before we set up an event. So yeah, if you're interested in having one wherever you're based, Natasha, then let us know and we can come and have a chat to you and your community.
Yeah, and I think also with that is ideas on how to publicize it, things like that. I think
yes,
either from nextdoor.com or something like that, different channels.
So we can put you on our website, help you with social media, point you in the direction of all your best sort of local resources to advertise. But often, the best places to find your volunteers are very much community based. So you might have other community volunteering groups, local notice boards, community newsletters, those kind of things, and you'll know best as a local resident where that is to advertise.
Yeah. So I know Amanda's saying Barry would benefit from this. I think you're right. You look at the high street of Barry, there's some challenges there, you know, like many towns in Wales, regarding high street space, repair cafe, the library of things, the community fridge Avion was talking about. There's clearly a number of things that could be brought together, can't they, into our communities, and our high streets. There's going to be some surplus stock in the next couple of years, until we adjust to this environment. So and I think, again, working with the housing associations is part of it. That's why TFS Cymru have taken an interest in this subject. We've become part of an advisory group for Benthyg Cymru. We're joining their group. I think it's going to be fascinating over the next couple of years, this type of stuff, you know. Zero waste shop. Sorry, I'm just picking up the comments here again. Rachel's saying about zero waste shops as well. Yeah. See more and more of them joining, opening, aren't we?
Yes, yeah, and I guess that's another really great example of where we're seeing circular economy initiatives on high streets. And yeah, great idea to link up with the one in Barry.
So anything, Avion, you want to come back to? I think we're in a bit of more of an open discussion now, in terms of if people have got thoughts or oh, you're still on mute.
I'd muted, apologise. I think it's a really interesting area that's opening up around the concept of hubs and the availability of all of these ideas in one place for a community. No doubt, the component parts, you know, as Phoebe's alluded to, the component parts of a hub are different per community, and that's the way it should be. That the component parts are drawn into a hub to fulfill the needs of that community. There's a few of them around. There's a great, there's another one, the Newport one looks great, and I'm going to be following that with huge interest, and see if we've got some things that we can sort of put in there that would help, you know, sort of reciprocal lifting of footfall. Maybe a community fridge could go in there, you know, so food being a sort of a daily commodity brings in people who then use the other services. So hubs are definitely the way to go. There's one in Newtown, going to start off. That was done via the community council there. That's on the high street. They're going to be doing all sorts of things. There's the Green Shed, Haverfordwest, run by Pembrokeshire Frame, and they do all sorts of bits and pieces. Crest Cooperative in Llandudno Junction have a Green Shed, which is developing as a sort of walk-in centre where a number of these things are available. We need more of these sites. We need them to be permanent, so that people, so that they can shape and mould and change. Yeah, certainly, around communities' ever-evolving needs, but that there is a stability. There is a place that's got a flag on the top, a brand, whatever. You know, people can go into and they know that they can do all of these things.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, isn't it? Evolving when I joined this sector, the hubs that were being put together by Cardiff Council are more around advice hubs. So, you know, financial advice and citizen advice bureau and credit unions and things like that. They were more financial hubs and services, whereas this is a more physical, isn't it? Goods and repairs and borrowing things and things like that, recycling and the circular economy. So they're both as important. They're just different locations, maybe, or different types of service. Yeah. Mally's asked, do you need to book in advance to take items to a repair cafe?
No, not normally. So outside of COVID, no, you just show up, and normally someone will be there and be able to fix your item. At the moment, obviously our events aren't running because of COVID, so they're hoping a number of them to reopen in May, when we can have, I think it's up to 30 people outside, so there'll be a number of outdoor repair cafes happening in May, with the rest hopefully opening across the summer as the restrictions lift. But a few of them may have a booking system in place just because of restrictions on numbers for now, but in normal life, no, you wouldn't need to book.
And maybe what are the most popular things? Obviously, I accept Penarth is not typical Wales. So when I went, it was vacuum cleaners, and I think minor seems like repairs, buttons and zips and things like that.
Yeah, household electricals are by far the most popular item. I'd say probably 80% of stuff that we get through the door is small household electricals. So Hoovers is a big one, which they often actually just need a bit of a clean out. They're often just full of dust, and toasters, again, they're often just full of crumbs. So they're nice, easy ones. But also coffee machines are quite popular, TVs, computers. So yeah, small household electricals, sorry, are our most popular. We do get a lot of clothing, children's bikes, toys, and then a couple of our repair cafes have some more kind of niche skill sets amongst their volunteers. So we've got a brilliant volunteer in Swansea who can do great sort of antique repairs, so antique pottery. He's done quite a few sort of gramophones and record players as well, so some really kind of specialist stuff. So depending on where you go, you might get some different things fixed as well.
Yeah. Another thing I saw today was the launch of a new database as well for repair shops, because obviously I'm conscious some things can be repaired within the repair cafe, but you also don't want to eat in on certain
of course,
local businesses as well. So I noticed today, I could put a link in a minute, but it was a new database of where you were able to search for local repair businesses in your area. And again, I think complements the whole recycle agenda, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we often get asked actually whether repair cafes compete with local repair businesses, and whether there's any sort of competition between the two. But actually, most of the stuff that gets fixed at a repair cafe are quite low value items that you wouldn't pay to have someone to fix anyway. That service doesn't exist. For example, if your toaster broke, there isn't really somewhere you would go and pay to have that fixed. You would just buy a new toaster. So there's not a huge amount of competition for the two, and there's room for both to exist.
Absolutely.
The repair directory is brilliant because it really highlights to people where they can go and get things fixed, because often people just aren't aware that those businesses do exist in their community. We did a volunteer survey earlier this year, and as part of it we asked people, do you know where your local seamstress is? Do you know where your local mobile phone repair shop is? And most people didn't, and that's on a demographic of people that are already interested in repair and tapped into that world. So for people that aren't, there's very little awareness of those businesses. So it's great to have that directory to be able to kind of encourage that.
Yeah. And I think the point is you made about having to drive there. So I only saw lunchtime, but I looked up the nearest TV repair, and it's the other side of Newport, which is great if you're in Newport, but it's quite a distance from me in terms of getting that repaired. And then you've got to start going into carbon footprint and everything else. So Marie has asked about, I think it's volunteer fixers. How do you identify them within a community? How do you get that started? Because there's people in this room here who can help facilitate the communication and potentially a venue or something like that, but you need repairers, don't you?
Yeah, you do. So we can help you advertise for those. We've got poster templates you can use, social media templates you can use to help find them. I mean, often social media is a brilliant way of spreading the word. You can also often, because we've got quite a few repair cafes now, link in with perhaps your nearest local repair cafe and share volunteers for at least your first few events to help support with that. So there's lots of ways that we can help you find volunteers, and also people to just host the events as well. It's not just fixers that you need. You obviously need those people to greet people, to help people know where they're going and what forms to fill in and the rest of it. So there's lots of different roles you can have, and we can definitely help you with finding those people.
So those type of, are they, obviously again, my local demographic of Penarth is God's waiting room a little bit. So they're obviously mainly retired people. But Tim Mills has made a point in the comments about excellent platform for students, apprenticeships, things like that, to hone their skills. Is that what you see most of? Yeah.
We do. The majority of our volunteers are older or retired people. I think that's because it's a generational thing in terms of fixing things.
Mm.
So we see that, you know, there's a certain generation that were brought up not throwing things away, fixing things, and so they have so many skills that younger generations just haven't been brought up with. And I think that's probably why it's so popular with older people.
Mm.
We would love to have more younger people volunteering at repair cafes. I think it's something that's going to be really important in terms of that shift in mindset of throwing things away. We need more skills and repairing skills within younger generations. But we do see people come in, and you know, lots of young people come in, lots of the engineering students actually at Cardiff University, lots of those get involved, same within Swansea as well. But it's definitely something that we do want to do more of in the future, and we do want to encourage more of.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to look through the comments here. I guess we'll come to the end of anybody else got any more questions. I think Mally was saying the same thing about, you know, the community fridges would work well with the repair cafe. There's clearly a synergy that presumably you'll explore between you for Newport and maybe other sites, isn't it? Yeah. Maybe the community fridge, Avion. What type of things do people put in there? Maybe I haven't had a chance to visit one yet, so I've been meaning to.
Yeah, okay. Well, it comes from three places. The food input comes from three places. First of all, from householders, and that generates a feeling of, well, I've been dropping stuff off. I've got a right to go and pick stuff up from. So there's that. It helps. It helps you sort of engage in it, so that you can give and receive. The stuff is just anything from your fridge in terms of packs of butter, vegetables. We're talking about stuff that's still in their packaging. Tin stuff. Although Community Fridge is a brand, the space doesn't just consist of a fridge and freezers, or it's dry storage as well. I mean, the package we've put together by doing a deal with industry and the co-op is that the community get the fridges free, a grant to titivate the corner, to, you know, and to put in shelves and get the photocopier or whatever's needed, and then the training from us, the free training. So the full package for the 12 across Wales is all free, and then yeah, in terms of what other bits of food come in. There's surplus food from your small local businesses. There's a co-op deal, so if there's a co-op in the locality, they will fill the fridge on a regular basis, so that, you know, it's not left empty. There'll always be something in there. And the other area that we found food comes into community fridges from local food producers and farmers. One of our community fridges over Christmas distributed 25 tons of vegetables over the Christmas period, and that was just in one small town in Pembrokeshire, and that came from farmers who couldn't shift it quick enough. So yeah, it's once people get to know about it, it's just as much of a use to community businesses as it is to local people.
Noticed Amanda's made a comment about, does it impact food bank donations? I'm guessing it's a slightly different demographic and smaller items, single use type stuff.
Yeah, it shouldn't do. I mean, food banks, Fair Share, Community Fridge, they tend to work together well. For example, a Fair Share isn't somewhere where the public would turn up. A Fair Share is a depot where all the stuff comes into. You know, the Fair Share in Cardiff. Organisations who use food would join that and receive it in the same way a community fridge could receive food from Fair Share. With food banks, it's means tested for a particular target group, for particular extreme social concerns. That's not to say that people in need aren't using community fridge, because they do. 70% of the people using it are in need. I mean, there's not a competition for the food. There's millions more, but literally millions more food that's being either incinerated or buried. And, you know, the argument that you can get a bit of electricity out of food doesn't really wash, because the energy going into food production, packaging, distribution, transport purchasing, farming, all of that doesn't, there are cheaper ways of generating renewable electricity than burning food. Food was designed for people to eat, and that's what Community Fridge does. It takes Wales back to a kind of day when you could knock on your neighbour's door and borrow something that you were out of. You know, that's what it does, really. It does. It puts back that basic function in community. It doesn't happen. It doesn't tend to happen as much in communities that have dissipated because of industry collapse and whatnot. People don't know each other as much as years ago. So Community Fridge is a sort of an excuse or a kind of a little hub for that to sort of happen. So I see this as a community development tool as much as anything, although it has huge impacts on tonnage diversion of food. So,
I think that's the point, isn't it? These things here are about community resilience, aren't they? And about self-sustaining communities. Yeah, so I think going to come to more or less an end here, if that's okay, unless anyone's got any last comments. There is one here, sorry, I'm not sure who's aimed at. Have you linked with providers on Too Good To Go? A great app that would be brilliant. Yeah, I've seen that app as well. I don't know if that's Avion maybe rather than Phoebe. Yeah.
There's
you linked up with Too Good To Go. That's where you're talking about the food share type stuff, was it?
Yeah, that has a particular niche market. So you know, from takeaway places and whatnot. From what I gather, I haven't got a full depth of knowledge on that. But some of our community fridges have sort of worked with takeaway and restaurants as well. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I hope this has been used to you to spark some ideas. I think the key thing is I hope we can share the slides. Can we yeah, I can see a nod from Phoebe, Evian, with your contact details on there so that if you want to take this forward, the details will be there. Jon will have that out probably by tomorrow morning for you. And I think this is something we can come back to. I think we'll all be interested to see how Skinner Street gets on. Maybe if we're doing this again next year, let's see where we are and how we are again with Avion's projects. The Kellen as well. I think I'd like to do something with you on that. You know, if you're interested.
If I don't want to hog it, but I'd just like to add, yeah, I'd be very happy to do that because it would be the kind of glue that ties a lot of these initiatives together. For example, you know, if a library of things, or say if people are doing a sort of an attic or shed clear out, a lot of reuse social enterprises have amnesties where they receive that. They can turn that into local wealth by selling it. Your first protocol, obviously, in a Wales full of library of things, your first protocol is to see whether they've got enough of lawnmowers and whatnot and donate there. Your second protocol, when your library of things have got 5 or 6 lawnmowers and this, we don't want any more, you could consider that kind of amnesty, so donating to a social enterprise that will use it for local income generation and employ people off the back of that. But with the Kellen, there's an incentive because the social enterprise can pay people in their communities for clearing their sheds and spare room of lawnmowers and whatnot with a redeemable token that can only be spent in the locality. So it's a benefit to the community member and then a benefit to other places where it can go, where it can be spent.
Yeah. And I think
the sky's the limit.
The scope as well within tenant participation, I think we talk about how we reward volunteers. There are a number of reward schemes out there. And I think this is an area I'd like to maybe have a chat with you another day about that sort of tenant volunteer reward schemes. And it could be that this is something that could work quite well. So I mean, anyway, I'm sure I won't keep everyone else for that. Thank you, everybody, for taking part today and some of the really interesting questions. I hope you found it interesting. and I'd like to see if we can follow this up in the future. Do let me know if you're doing anything as well as a result of this. This is always the issue, you know, do people act on stuff? So please do keep us in touch as TPAS. I'm sure we'd be keen to support and help as well. So thank you all for this session. Cheers.
Thank you.